If you're someone looking to lose a little bit of weight, drop a little bit of fat mass without compromising your performance, your strength gains, your endurance gains, then today you are in the right place. This is a dilemma that I'm currently facing myself as I look to improve my power to weight ratio, drop a little bit of fat without sacrificing my gains. Okay, my name is Sam Gerlin. I'm the founder of Gerlin Nutrition. I'm a fully qualified nutritionist and I'm a health coach, and I help people harness the power of nutrition and a holistic approach to health to unlock their health and fitness goals. I believe in performance-related goals as opposed to the more traditional weight loss-related goals. And today, as I say, we're going to be talking about how you can lose fat without sacrificing your performance. If you see me looking over here, it's because I've got my laptop here and I want to make sure that I'm touching all the points that I've got written down today, so I'm providing all the value I can. That is always the case, so strap in because we're about to get stuck straight into it. Now we're going to start in the most natural place for myself, which is of course nutrition, and for me it's probably one of the most important factors when it comes to losing fat or losing weight and maintaining your performance. This is where your macro split really becomes very important, but also your energy balance, because ultimately if you're looking to lose some fat mass whilst maintaining as much muscle mass as possible, your energy balance is going to be important. So you want to be ultimately in a calorie deficit. So calculating what your maintenance calories are, before we continue on this point, I should add that I'm not a big believer in calorie counting. I see it as a tool as opposed to a solution to these sorts of problems. So, roughly calculating your maintenance calories can help you to decipher roughly how many calories you should be eating per day. You want to be looking for a roughly, starting nice and low, 200, 300, 400, 500 calorie deficit. And then if you need to reduce from there, that's absolutely fine. But the important thing to consider is when you're still trying to perform while shedding some fat mass, you're looking sort of long-term and more sustainable, because the last thing you want to do is drop too much too soon, because that's going to hinder your performance. Okay, so keeping that deficit as small as we possibly can and making sure that we're still fueling around that is super important. I mentioned at the start of the video, or just earlier, that your macro split is going to be super important. I've made lots of videos on these sorts of things before, so I'll leave some links in the description down below, but I'm going to touch on them very, very quickly today, just so you've got some context. Protein intake. Okay, you're going to want to be taking on a minimum of 1 gram per pound of your body weight per day. So if you're a 200-pound athlete, you need 200 grams of carbs as a bare minimum. Now, if you are eating slightly fewer calories, or your energy balance is in a deficit, you realistically want to be looking at bumping that, just to make sure that you're recovering well, and you can still show up each and every day and perform. You're maintaining your muscle mass, that's super important, and you're driving that muscle protein synthesis process and that turnover of muscle. Okay, so 1 gram per pound is the bare minimum. That will probably help you maintain, but if you want to look to actively build and maintain your strength gains as well, pushing that to sort of up to as high as 1.5, 1.2 certainly is going to help. Okay, so that is protein. It can help to spread that across sort of at least 3 meals per day. So those of you that, intermittent fast, make sure that you're still getting at least 3 meals per day as a bare minimum. I often see people eating 2 or even 1 meal per day, and I just don't think that's wholly conducive to maintaining muscle mass and shedding fat mass and still performing well. Okay, so a minimum of 3, potentially even up to 6 meals per day with an even spread of protein between those meals. You might look for, at least 30 grams of protein per meal, okay, as a bare minimum. Next, carbohydrates. To maintain your performance, again, you're going to want to be sort of prioritizing your carbohydrates as your main, energy substrate, especially if your sessions are more intense and you're training multiple times per day. And you're really, adopting that hybrid approach with some lifting and some, more cardio aerobic work as well. So 3 to 5 grams per kilogram of body weight is a good sort of number to strive for. For someone like myself who weighs, anywhere between 75 and 80, kilograms, I'm going to want to be taking on anywhere around, 225 to 240 grams per day. Often on days where I'm training twice per day or the sessions are more intense. So on my quality, capacity, high rock session days, I'll push that number closer to 300 just to make sure that I'm, sufficiently fueled, and then afterwards I'm recovering and replenishing my glycogen stores, which are our body's stored form of carbohydrates in the muscle and the liver. Okay, fats is still important to include healthy fats, but what's important to consider with your fat intake is the quality, because it's still super important to take on fats for things like hormonal health, and brain activity, these sorts of things. But it's important to consider that fats are more than twice as calorific. So there's more energy in 1 gram of fat than there are carbohydrates and protein. So in carbohydrates and protein, there's 4 grams. There's 4 calories per gram. And in fats, there's 9 calories per gram. So if you're eating in a slight deficit and your fats are really high, it's going to be really hard to get in the right amount of protein and carbohydrates. So the way that I see healthy fats is include them in moderation, because they're important for, as I say, hormonal balance and overall health. You might cycle them into your recovery days. So, okay, activity might be slightly lower, but you've got less of a need for carbohydrates on your recovery days. So increasing fats is one option that you might consider. So if you have 1 or 2 rest days a week, having some more fats on those days could be an option that you go for. Or on higher intensity days when your caloric needs are higher as well. Obviously you want to be prioritizing your carbohydrates, but you've got a little bit more wiggle room for some healthy fats. That's another thing you might consider. Or indeed on those longer aerobic days. So where your intensity is lower, but your volume is higher. So you might have 2 hours on the Concept 2 bike, or you might have a 2-hour Zone 2 session, a 60-minute run and 60 minutes on the bike, whatever it may be. If you're in those lower heart rate zones, Zone 1, Zone 2, lower end of Zone 3, you're not going to be tapping into as many carbohydrates. Your body will be burning fuel in those ranges because you're aerobic, you're in the presence of oxygen. So you can have slightly more fats on those days as well. So they're your 3 options for your healthy fats, but generally you want to be prioritizing your proteins and your carbohydrates if you're still looking to lose fat, but maintain your performance. Okay, moving on to the training. How are we going to balance our strength work, our hypertrophy work, our capacity work, our longer endurance work? Now, this is really up to you and what you've found works for you. Obviously, the same goes for the nutrition in that respect, but all I can do is provide you with what works for me and what I find works for a lot of my clients as well. So, I've built up my volume and intensity and frequency over months and if not years now. So I only normally take 1 rest day, and it's often an active rest day or on a Sunday. But I like a split of, 2 upper sessions a week. So a pull and a push, a lower push and a lower pull. So hinge movements on the pull day and more squat focused movements on the push day. I like at least 1, if not maybe 2 capacity sessions a week. So that's where I'm really looking to improve my anaerobic performance at a threshold sort of intensity. That may be in the form of a run or a high rock session. And then I'm looking to run 3 to 4 times a week as well. A lot of those miles or kilometers are going to be easy. But, as a bare minimum, what I would recommend is 2 to 3 strength sessions per week. That's going to make sure that you're still making gains in the gym. If the split is right, you can still do plenty on a 3-day split to preserve that lean muscle mass and still cut away at the fat mass. And then you want to monitor intensity on the more endurance and aerobic work. So if you are pushing yourself on your strength sessions, managing the volume and intensity in the endurance sessions is going to be super important, and vice versa. So this is where periodization becomes really important. It's something that I'm currently looking into. It's the off season. I finished High Rocks Cardiff last weekend, so I've now got 4 months until my next race. And I've recently had a conversation with my coach. Shout out to you, Sam at LS Fitness. I'll leave their link in the description down below as well. They've really, really helped me out. But I've had a conversation with coach, and we've said that we're going to be focusing on maximal strength in the first 2 months of that block, and then we're going to be focusing on endurance in the second 2 months of that block. Okay, so periodizing and focusing on 1 stimulus at a time is really, really important, and it's going to help you continue making progress on your performance-related goals without sacrificing, that little bit of fat mass reduction. Okay, so I'm in a very similar boat. If this is all resonating with you, I'm doing exactly the same as you are right now. This is why I'm, pretty buoyant talking about this topic, because it's something that I'm very much invested in at the moment. Next point I wanted to touch on, section 3 of this video, I guess you could call it, is what I consider to be, the unsung hero of any performance-related goal. It's your recovery. Of course, sleep speaks for itself. For hormone regulation and your circadian rhythm, you're going to want to be sleeping consistently 7 to 9 hours per night. Trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day really, really does help with that. It helps you stay in tune with your, nutritional and hunger and fullness cues. And just your hormone health is super important. So sleep is, of course, essential. Nutrition timing as well, making sure that you're taking on fuel straight after your training sessions. You're fueling, you're proactive with things before and during your sessions. If you've got a longer intensity session, intra-training nutrition is super important. So you might take a gel, these sorts of things. I've touched on all these areas in other videos, so go check out all of my old videos, because these sorts of topics are covered in there, but it's not really the purpose of this video. I'm just making you aware of some things that you consider when it comes to recovery. And then, of course, stress management as well. This is a video that I actually plan on making. I haven't made it yet. If you want to see that, do let me know in the comment section down below. I can really go deep on, how to manage your stress, because what people fail to realize is when our cortisol levels are high, which is our stress hormone, the levels of our blood glucose increase for a process called gluconeogenesis, which is effectively, the production of glucose from non-carbohydrate sources in the body. And it's like a fight or flight response. It's driven through, adrenaline and these sorts of things. And, if you're chronically stressed and you've chronically got high cortisol levels and your blood sugars are constantly high, that means your insulin is high. And insulin promotes fat storage. So, you're never going to shed that fat mass if you're constantly stressed and your cortisol levels are constantly high, which means your glucose is high, which means your insulin is high, and you're storing that fat. Your body goes into that, again, fight or flight mode, and it thinks to itself, I need to keep this fat for later in the day. It's a survival adaptation. It's evolutionary. So, make sure that you're managing your stress. That's super important. It's also important for, tapping into our hunger hormones, our hunger cues, leptin and ghrelin. I'm sure you've heard of those, our satiety and hunger hormones. And poor sleep, I've just got a couple of points here as well. If you want to see this sort of video, do let me know. I can really go into this in depth, because it's another topic that I'm really passionate about, as I mentioned. But the more cortisol you have, it also impacts your sleep. You've got less growth hormone, which is impairing recovery. And it also leads to muscle breakdown, which is, what we call catabolism. Couldn't say that then. Had a little brain malfunction there. But muscle breakdown is also caused by cortisol. So managing your stress levels is super important. Catabolism. I see the word on the screen there and it threw me off. It's super, super important. Of course, recovery. Final couple of points I want to make. One is on supplementation. If you really want to enhance your results, you can turn to supplements like creatine. That's one that I really do recommend. It's one of the most researched supplements. Creatine is for all, not just for pro bodybuilders. So we need to, dispel that myth. 3 to 5 grams per day is enough, and it's going to support, your strength and help you maintain your muscle mass. Caffeine can enhance performance, and it can even increase fat oxidation as well. So especially around your workouts, make sure your cutoff is around midday or at least early afternoon, because caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours, so it can disrupt the quality or onset of our sleep in ways that we may not even realize. But caffeine can be an important one. And then I also want to make sure that you're aware of the importance of monitoring your progress and adjusting things as we go. So I mentioned at the start of this video that I'm not a big believer in calorie counting, but a good way to stay on top of things like your weight is, if you have a scale at home, is weighing yourself at consistent times. It might be every day, it might be every other day, it might be every week. It's about recognizing what works for you, because whilst weight, doesn't tell us the full story because of, body composition, fluid retention, carbohydrate intake, it does tell us a fair bit about the trend or general trends, and how we can adjust our calorie intake or our training load in accordance with that. Okay, so tracking things is super important. Performance metrics can also help with this. So, if you notice that your strength or your numbers in the gym are still increasing, your running splits are improving, chances are you're probably fueling well enough to, make sure you're getting that balance between fat loss and performance gains. Okay, and then another really important one that's often overlooked is just general energy levels. People will obsess so much about the weight they see on the scale without recognizing how they're feeling. So just paying attention to how your general mood is, how your energy levels are, is another super important one as well. But that is pretty much it for this video. I hope it is proven valuable for you. I hope you've learned something from this. If you have any questions off of anything that I've said today, please do feel free to drop me a DM or leave it in the comment section below. I read every single comment and I reply to them all. So I'll be sure to get back to you down there. If there's anything that you want to see off the back of this, please do let me know that as well. I should let you know that in the description down below there will be a link. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about this sort of stuff and you want someone to help guide you through it, the link in the description will, for full transparency, take you to my funnel where you can learn a little bit more about my services as a coach and what I offer, what my program entails. There's no pressure to do so, but I'm making you aware of it if it is something that you are indeed interested in. But other than that, again, I hope you found value in this video. I really would appreciate it if you could like, comment, and subscribe, because, I'm coming with free YouTube videos every single week now. I'm trying to be very, very consistent on the YouTube front, and again, provide as much value because, ultimately, I just want to help people like yourselves out and make sure that, you're learning and educating yourself on these sorts of things, because I think it's important. It's important to look after ourselves, and it's important to find a solution for a sustainable, long-term, enjoyable approach to our health and our fitness. Okay, so hit that subscribe button, like and comment down below. If there's anything you want to see once more, leave it down there. I'll be sure to get back to you. If you've made it to this point in the video, you're an absolute legend. We've just hit the 17-minute mark. So I really do appreciate you. Have yourself a blessed day, and I will see you in the next one in a bit.